I proudly present to you the Video Store Guide!
Movie guys are here, the two movie guys. All right. So, this first show, what we're going to explain is how we rate movies because there are no such thing as critics anymore. No such thing as people that have an unbiased opinion about the dog turds that are coming out of Hollywood nowadays, right? There's
Or the
so many,
gems. Yeah.
so many people that are just saying whatever they can because they want everyone to believe everything that they're saying. And, yeah, and money.
And money.
And the crap is just it's flowing out of Hollywood. So I have a set of requirements that make or break a good movie. The man, Mr. Tyler Randall, he has a set of requirements, and we're gonna have a little system, and we are going to what's the best way to put this? Before we jump face first in the turd pool, we are gonna have a set the perfect way to analyze all the shit coming out of Hollywood. So, so first and foremost, if a movie if it's pushing an agenda, hey, homosexual agenda, whatever it is, hey, and side note, nobody on this show is anti-gay or anti-LGBTQ plus caret sign. Nobody is that. But dramatic pause for effect. Everyone, I'd say everyone, a majority of people that get on and want to see a movie at the movie theater, especially with their children, Lightyear, especially with their children, they do not want to see all the bullshit at the theater. They just want to see a wholesome movie. All right. Anyway, my first one is if a movie has anything to do pushing a political agenda, it's absolute garbage. Tyler, what's your first one?
My first one is honestly, it's because we're going to do what points based 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Right. So a big one for me is whether or not it works in the genre that it's in. That's a big one for me. That's probably number one. But also if it stands alone apart from a genre, much like Die Hard, which we'll be talking about later, it stands alone as an action movie, but also as a Christmas movie, it works, and as an action movie, it works. So there are some ways to blur the lines, but that's the first thing I look for.
Perfect example. That's an amazing example. And it's funny because the second you said it, I was like, well, because we're going to talk about Die Hard. I wanted you to point that out. Perfect. Okay, my second one is if you have actors throughout the movie that are looking at the camera, and if it's not a movie that is built for individuals looking at the camera, i.e., The Office. If like my perfect example, I critiqued Moonfall a few weeks ago, and I love Halle Berry. She's extremely talented, absolutely beautiful. I'd lick the jelly out of her rear end parts, but I tell you what, she was staring at the camera, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And that absolutely killed it for me. So that's going to give a star, plus or minus on the stardom.
I think for me, my another thing, something that I look for, kind of goes to your first one, is not just agenda setting, but the inability to use subtext or the ability to use it well. For example, when you're watching like Reservoir Dogs, for example, Tarantino he was always meticulous about writing dialogue. He was always meticulous about stage direction and what they're saying and how they're saying it. But he had one of his directors that was his mentor told him, "Yeah, okay, but what's the scene about?" And he's like, "Well, it's these two guys talking, and they just robbed a bank and blah blah blah." He goes, "No, but what's the subtext? You've done all the text work. You need to do subtext." So the subtext of it is it's a father-son. It's Mr. White and Mr. Orange, right? It's Harvey Keitel. It's Harvey Keitel saying, "You're a bank robber. I'm not taking you to the hospital." And it's Tim Roth going, "I'm actually a cop. Please take me to the hospital." And he's like, "I'm going to take care of you." He's like, "You don't understand." Like that, there is layers to that, and that's what I was talking about when you're talking about something that's an agenda. If it doesn't ring true and they just lazily shove agenda item A, B, C, D into it. It's lazy. There's no subtext, and it takes you out of the movie, really. And if you can sit there and watch something again and again and pull something from it, if it rings true, you could lie to me, but I'm still gonna enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. My third one, I'd have to say, is if you have individuals that aren't that that don't play that don't play well together, and everyone's seen a movie that it's like this, and I'm for some reason I'm scraping. I'm going to give you an example of a good one, like Grown Ups 1 and 2. The people, they work so well together. The four guys are friends,
Chemistry.
not
Yeah.
only on camera, but they're friends, and you feel it as you're watching a movie. You kind of just feel it. Everything kind of clicks. You can feel that there's no, you know what? Sex in the City. Sex in the City. You can feel that there's something just not right, and that's why I never really liked Sex in the City for more than one reason, right?
Right.
So that's my third one.
What you're saying is it seemed more soapy, like they're reading lines,
Yeah.
rather than having that chemistry. Which, by the way, Adam Sandler's movies always have good subtext, but despite there being like a clear moral to the story, in the scenes he can be very heartfelt and touching, and there can always be something extra there, even though it's a comedy. That's why it always has touching moments. It's what gives a movie heart. So I completely agree with you. That's how my first. So I would say for my third biggest thing is how the movie looks. And when I say look, I mean not just cinematography in general. Just how is the composition set up? Like when you watch an Oliver Stone movie, you expect certain compositions. When you watch like Eyes Wide Shut, which I just watched, which is I'm losing his name at the moment, but
Cruz.
Tom Cruise. No, Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh, Stanley Kubrick's compositions, they look like paintings that move. That's what's so beautiful about it. Like you can clearly tell in Eyes Wide Shut, they're on a backlot, but it is so neon and also dark. And then the color red is used for lust constantly. And you go and you rewatch and you can see the little. So I'm looking for composition. And if it's flat, it's flat. What are you going to do? They just make it like nowadays, everybody does CGI. It's very hard to get a CGI movie to not look flat. And that's why the first 10 Marvel movies look good because they spend all that extra money to render. So I would say my three things are about like 2 points each. And then whatever randomly comes to me during, the watching of the movie that'll add those other 4 points in there for me. Like, for instance, dialogue. Like if there's just a really good exchange, a real hot, back and forth, that'll add a point for me. So 1 to 10, the three things that I mentioned, those will be 2 points each, basically. And then I'll add 1 point for something that catches my eye or take 1 point away.
And I think that's why you're the beautiful and the smart one in this combo, because the way you eloquently put everything together to make it. I just hit you with the words and you put it together to make it sound right so everyone understands. So my next one is, if a movie is based in New York or LA, it's an immediate killer. It's an immediate killer for me, because every freaking movie is in either New York or LA. It absolutely just kills it. Like, hey, the opening scene, they're panning through New York City. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, here we go again.
So Escape from New York, Escape from LA, these are both bad for you.
Well, they are immediately, they lost a point for me. So
got you. Well, I mean, they are places to escape from, and they do exactly. They do kind of mimic that Carpenter-esque hellscape. So let's talk about the premise of the show. Video store guys. My background: I grew up in a suburb of Las Vegas called Henderson, which before it got huge, now it's a huge city. But back when it was basically two developments and an elementary school, my mom ran a independent movie store called Movies to Go, and it later became Powerhouse Video, and then was bought out by, I believe, Hollywood Video. It was right next to an Albertsons. There was a sub shop next to it, and that's where I spent my early childhood from years like 3 to 8, and seen. I was watching the Terminator when I was like 3. I had seen all Tango and Cash. I'd seen all the Lethal Weapon movies, all the Die Hard movies, and some movies I shouldn't have seen when they came out. Honestly, like Natural Born Killers, pretty disturbing stuff. But
Oh yeah,
my mom always made sure to tell me, that's
absolutely.
make believe. It's not real. Everything in it is fake, and also don't go behind the Western doors. And which I promptly did immediately.
Oh yeah, of course.
So the
That's so awesome.
pitch, the premise of the show is that a pitch. So me embodying the video store guy, whatever movie we're presenting, I'm gonna give you the counter pitch. Basically, you're saying, I don't know, should I rent this? I'll give you the quick pitch, and then Terp will tell me whether or not he thinks he's gonna watch, whether or not he would take my recommendation, given what I've told him, and then we'll go into breaking it down on our own merits and give it our 1 to 10.
And we'll also compare what the actual Metascore and Rotten Tomatoes give you compared to what we give you. I think it's important that we compare the regular Joe Schmo to Hollywood critics. I think that's important.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think people need to hear that. So.
Thank you, gentlemen. We look forward to seeing you again.